Hello everyone, my name is Nathan and today it's time for another episode of Let's Make a Game. In the previous episode we accomplished the ability to spawn in a conveyor belt and we can actually place them on the floor, we can rotate them around with R, and that is basically all we accomplished so far. Today I would like to establish a little GUI for the developer in order to kind of keep track of things, something like a debugging menu. The second goal I would like to achieve is the ability to remove these belts again with a little health bar that indicates how long it will take to remove the belt. So these are the two things we are gonna try to accomplish today. Let's see how it works out. Before we do that though, I want to show you one additional functionality I totally forgot about, and fortunately enough you let me know in the comments section. We can of course optimize the code right here. For instance, this function right here is referring to the global placement direction all the time. So instead of all these if and else if statements which are referring to the same variable, we can also use a switch statement. So let me actually try to accomplish that. We're gonna use a switch statement and basically replace everything that is below it. The switch statement is going to be for the global placement direction, and we don't want to define it just yet. We want to open up the brackets and close them right here, and we want to define the first case. The first case is if the variable is up, and we have to close this up with a double point. So if it is up, then we want to set the global placement direction to right. No, to up actually. Yeah, I totally messed that up. And we can get rid of that. No, we want to set it to right. That was completely correct. Of course, we want to switch it around. So after that happens, we want to set a break statement just like that. And I think it makes more sense if we tap this one further to the right, something like that. Now we are gonna define the second case, which is right. If it is right, then of course the global dot placement direction should be down. Once again a break, and we get to the third case, which is the downwards direction. So if it is down, then the global placement direction should go to the left. Great, and then the last case we also have to define case left. Then we want to switch to global direction up. There we go, one last break and we can get rid of this ugly else if statement. And look at that, the switch statement is much more elegant and cleans up our code by a lot. So I'm also gonna optimize this, but I'm gonna do this off camera. Right now we are having one mistake. Of course I need to finish this with another bracket. There we go. Cool, so now that we know about the switch statement, let's continue by creating a bunch of scripts. The first one is going to be the Debug Info, and we probably want to place this on the core. Let's give it a nice title. We're gonna confirm that, and object core, this is gonna go on the draw GUI event, I would say. So let's add that script debug info right there. Okay, we want to have this right here, and then we want to add yet another script. This is gonna be script remove objects. So this script of course is hopefully gonna allow us to remove everything. Now where does this go? Let's think about that. The remove objects is probably gonna go on every object. We are later on gonna have a master object and gonna set a parent, but for now we're just gonna place everything on the conveyor belt. So this script I actually want to add to the draw event. Believe it or not, we're gonna set the draw event up with the remove objects script. Cool. And then one last script for today's episode, which is gonna be script objects variables. And this is basically everything that we have in the create event of the objects. Variables. Oh no. There we go. That's proper English. Let's also save this shebang and get it below here. This should probably go on the create event. Yeah, let's set that on the create event of the conveyor belt. Cool, so first of all, of course, as per usual, we should have a look into the global variables and add something here. Let's see, let's do it beneath the objects. Gonna make a new title, which is gonna be the debug info. It's just gonna have one variable for the time being, which is debug info, and that equals to false to begin with. We don't want it to be shown in the beginning when starting up the game, but after we press, for instance, the tab key, then we can see it. So on the top of my head, I cannot think of anything else we should add to the global variables. Let's tend to the debug info. First of all, we want to set up a bunch of variables. I want my debug menu to be about 5 tiles or so in the width and then all the way down to the bottom. And we want to kind of draw a rectangle and then on top of it some text. So that's what we want to achieve. So we want to set the window width, which is my own defined variable, which is, as I said, 5 times global.tileSize. That is gonna be good, and then we want to define all the corners of the rectangles. So if this was our room right here, we had our debug window right there. So right here we have to define the first X and Y, and the second X and Y would be diagonally at the bottom right corner. So let's do that. It's gonna be, let's say, rectangle X1 is gonna be the view W port of 0 minus the window width. And then rectangle X2 would be the rectangle X1 plus the window width. Cool, then we have rectangle Y1, which would be 0, and the rectangle Y2 would be view H port of 0. Alright, that should be right. So with that we have defined all of the coordinates, and now we can get to draw the debug info. So draw debug info. Right here I want to check if the global debug info is true, and if that is the case, then of course we want to draw the stuff. We first want to set a color, and the color is going to be, let's say, white for the background. We can choose something more exciting or even a sprite later on, but for now it's just going to be a very simple rectangle, and we want to set the rect x1 as the first coordinate, then rect y1, rect x2 and rect y2, and we want to set the outline to false. This will draw the background. If you set this to true, it will only draw the outline. So that is good. Next up we want to change the color of our drawing instrument into, let's say, gray. And we want to draw another rectangle, there we go. Yeah, with the same coordinates, so we can just copy this over. No, I didn't mean to cut it, just copy, there we go. But this time we want to set the outline to true. So if we quickly test this, what we should be seeing is, of course, the rectangle on the right side. No, we cannot see it because in the global variables we set it to false. So maybe let's set it to true until we have the toggle functionality. And there we go. We have our rectangle with a light gray border around it. So that is working and good to know. Next up, let's define some more position variables for the text, so we can sort this out already with variables. It's always good to sort out as much stuff with variables as you can. So let's set the X position of the rectangle. We only need one X position, and then for every other line we need another Y position. So the one and only X position is actually the rect X1. We can start right there, or maybe we can add like 2 or 3 more pixels just so that it doesn't start right at the beginning. Then we want to define a line size. Let's go with 10. I don't know what the optimum level is going to be, but it's basically how far we want to space the lines apart. So the first Y position is going to be, let's say, Y pos 1 equal to 1 times line size. Okay, that could be good. And then pos 2 would be 2 times line size, right? And so on and so forth. And the more stuff we want to add, the more of these positions we have to add. Good, good, good. Now let's check if the global.debug info is true. Then we want to do something, and let's also give this a title. Here we actually draw the text. So if the debug info is true, then we want to draw set color to black so we can see it on the white background. And then we set the first Y position. So no, I call this Y pause like so. Here we want to have the first information, which is going to be the total tiles, right? So I'm gonna call the instance number of the object tile 01, and this will simply do a count how many objects are in the room. Of course, only of this object. And that number I want to draw as a text. So we're gonna set the draw text to xpos. Come on, write that correctly, and ypos01. And the text is going to be tiles, double point, and a space. Then we're going to close this off. And of course, after that, we want to add another string, which is the total tiles we defined just before. And we have to close this off with another bracket. There we go. That should be working out. Let's do the ypos02 as well, which is the total conveyor belts. And that, of course, is the instance number of the object conveyor. Come on, pop up. There we go. Then we want to draw a text at the xpos ypos02, and that is going to be conveyor belts, double point, space, plus string total conveyor belts. Let's already test this out and see if it works. And there we go. Look at that. The lines are still a little bit close together, so maybe we set 1 or 2 more pixels. But we have 10,000 tiles and 0 belts. If I place a bunch of belts, they go up. However, since I added the draw event, right now we cannot really see the belts. I will explain that in just a second. Okay, now we only have to add the toggle functionality. I'm gonna do that right here. Toggle window. This is going to be easy with a simple if keyboard check released. And we're going to take the VK tab, so the tab key. And right here, I don't know, I forgot, there's a very elegant way to do that. I'm going to do it very unelegantly right now, but bear with me and tell me how to do it better. But it's still gonna work the way I'm doing it. So we're gonna check if the global debug info is true, and if that is true, we want to set it to false and then vice versa. Debug info equals false. There we go. And if that fails, then we want to set the debug info to true. So yeah, that is an easy way to toggle it, but I'm sure there is a more elegant way, so let me know. Let's test this out one last time, and then we can tend to the remove functionality of the belts. So conveyor belts, we are gonna place you. What did I want to test? Yeah, I have to press the tab key and the info actually disappears, so that is great. However, we can see that we might want to leave a little bit more space. So now an easy way to do that, since we set up all of these, we could for instance do 7 times global.tilesize, right? I'm not exactly sure. Let's see if it worked out. Yeah, look at that. We now have more space. That is great. I forgot to increase the line size. There we go, 12, and everything should be fixed. Okay, last but not least, we want to be able to remove the objects, right? Let's maybe set the object variables first. So this is on the create event, the object variables. Here we are first of all gonna set the health values, and we're gonna use the self instead of the global variable, and self basically counts for the object itself. In different events you can call the self variable. If I only used health value like this, then I cannot call this variable from another event. So the self thing is very important. However, we are gonna set this value to 100 in the beginning. Then we are gonna set the placement direction. This is, I guess, important to kind of figure out in which direction an object is currently facing. And of course we can do that this time with a switch argument to the placement direction we want to check out. So if the global placement direction is up, then we want the self placement direction to be up as well. We're gonna take a break here, case right. we want the self placement direction to be right as well. So this is basically just copying over the direction we set it to be when we first placed it and kind of keep that variable within itself while not affecting the global variable anymore. If you get my drift. Did I do something wrong here? Yeah, this should not be with a bracket. There we go. And then last but not least, case left. The self placement direction should also be left. And a last break. There we go. I think that is all I want to add for the objects variables. Yes. Okay, now that we defined this health variable, we can conveniently start with the remove object script. First of all, since this is in the draw event, we want to draw something, and all the sprites get removed if you don't type the draw self function in the first place. So without this, we cannot see the belts. However, right now we can see it again because I draw them. This only happens if you have a draw event on your object. If you don't have a draw event, then you don't have to use that, of course. So let's check for the placement direction, the variable we set up before, the self placement dir. Okay, and of course that should be written correctly. There we go. So let's check case up. So what I basically want to do here is define the variables where the belts currently are. And if you remember, we had to kind of offset the belts at some points. I cannot just hover with the mouse over a belt and it counts as being over the belt. I have to set up a bunch of variables in order to counteract all of the offsets. It's kind of hard to explain. This part I had to prepare a little bit, and I have a little cheat sheet in order to set up all of these variables. So in case it is up, we want the x1 position to be equal to x and the hx1 position to be equal to x1. I'm not even sure if it makes sense if I tell you what I'm doing here. I'm just setting up everything so that we can use these variables later on. Very important variables here are the sprite height and sprite width. You can actually use those guys in your calculations. So y2 should be y plus sprite height, and hy2 should be y2, and then the break. Okay, I made also a mistake here. Great, so let me actually copy this over from my cheat sheet, the last few things. Okay, right here we basically just set up a bunch of variables. If the belt is facing upwards as we placed it, then it actually takes on these variables. So it will remember that x1 position is the x coordinate and the hx1 position is the x1 coordinate. And that is just because it's facing up. If it is facing right, then we have to make a bunch of corrections. So in the last episode, when we rotated a belt, it got kind of out of placement, and this is my corrections, and I cannot explain it in any other way. Anyways, now we just have to do something else. We just defined a bunch of variables. What we want to do now is the mouse over check. So we only want to do certain things if the mouse is actually over the object. So if the mouse X position is bigger than X1 and the mouse X position is smaller than X2 and the mouse Y position is bigger than Y1 and the mouse Y position is smaller than Y2, then we want something to happen, which is another if statement. We want to choose a key in order to remove something, and I think I'm gonna go with the middle mouse button. It's never used for anything. So if mouse check button, middle mouse button, middle, there we go. Then we want something to happen. So only if the mouse is over the object and we press the middle mouse button, then we want the deconstruction to happen. Right here we can say that the self health value is going to be minus equal 1. And did we actually define the self? Yeah, health value was 100. Good, so we can continue from here. We want to draw a health bar, and this is a ridiculously cool function. Here we want to use the other X and H values. So what I basically did on top of here with the HX values, these are the values for the health bar. And I want the health bar to be very narrow, very small, but across the entire icon. The first Y position for the health bar is Y plus the sprite height, so the entire sprite minus 5 pixels. So I want the health bar to be 5 pixels high. And this is what we are inputting right here, the HX1 value, then HY1, HX2, HY2, and we want to draw the amount, which is self-health value. Then we want to have a background color. I'm gonna set this to black, and we also want a minimum color and a maximum color. Let's go for red for the entire thing, so I don't want it to change the colors. Then the direction is gonna be 0, so that's gonna be from the right to the left. So it's kind of like losing health. And then we want to show the background and we want to show the border. Why the heck not? Great. Last but not least, we want to check if the self-health value has reached the value of 0 or under 0. And if that is the case, we want the instance to be destroyed. Later on, we would have to make sure that we actually get this item back, but since there are no items or inventories in the game just yet, that wouldn't make any sense. Great, okay, I hope you understood what was going on here. We're going to start up the game and we're going to spawn a bunch of conveyor belts into each direction, something like that. Q to get rid of that, we can see we have 27 conveyor belts at the moment. If I click that with the middle mouse button, you can see the health bar. We can also do this with the belts that are facing towards the right side or the belts that are facing downwards. Isn't that just beautifully amazing? So if I didn't add all of these corrections right here, we would run into issues such as I would have to click right here in order to remove a belt which is over there. Or the worst thing, if the belt is facing downwards, I would have to click, for instance, right here in order to remove this belt. However, with the corrections, I kind of counteracted this issue and now we can remove the belts accordingly, and right here we can always track how many we have. Tap in order to remove that. Great, great stuff. I love it. But other than that, guys, I would say we're gonna wrap it up for today's episode. Thank you once again for all your inputs, suggestions. Your support for this series is awesome. Have a great time and hopefully I'm gonna catch you soon. Bye bye.